Hello. Councils across the region have taken the first steps towards a big cut in town hall budgets. Thousands of public sector staff will lose their jobs, and those left behind won't be getting a pay rise this year.
The bleak prospect for council workers comes as their bosses seek to balance the books at a time of pressure on finances. Today, the Prime Minister, on a visit to the region, promised that more job opportunities are on the way.
How are you? Good to see you. Yeah, nice to be here. Lovely girl.
Today, the Prime Minister's been doing what he likes doing best, meeting the public and drawing attention to what he believes are his government's achievements.
And when do you open as a...
Well, about 8:30.
He was meeting people on this estate in Stevenage because they once had big problems with antisocial behaviour. But thanks to a number of initiatives, things are now much better. The Prime Minister was in the region on a day that people awoke to news that more of our councils are planning to shed jobs. 300 in Cambridgeshire, at least 65 in Norfolk, where there'll also be a pay freeze. And this a day after the Eon job losses in Essex.
This recession is still very bad, isn't it?
Every person's unemployment is a concern to me, but it's important to recognise that the services we're making available to people to help them get back into work are vastly different from what they were 10 years ago, far more professional, far more helpful, and the rate at which people can get back into work is a lot quicker than it has been before.
But these announcements from the county council suggest that the public sector is going to be hit very hard over the next few months.
I think you'll find that jobs in our economy will increase over the next year. And the reason that jobs will increase over the next year is that we are an economy that is seeking to return to growth.
But despite the Prime Minister's optimism, many people on this estate are still fearful when it comes to job security.
It's a very desperate situation. Work's gone elsewhere, it's going out of the country.
Is there a sense still that things are getting better?
No, I don't think there is.
Yeah, it made a really big difference.
Yeah. And,
Youth worker Marie Oliver was keen to tell the Prime Minister how life has improved on the estate in recent years. But she admits that when it comes to jobs, many people are still concerned.
Because there's so many people out of work at the moment, everybody's going for the same jobs.
Is there a sense that we're over the worst, or do people still feel that things are going to be bad for a while?
I think people still think it's going to take a while to pick back up.
Next week it's likely to be confirmed that Britain is coming out of recession, but it seems as if news of job losses will continue for some time to come. And as we've seen here today, many people remain uncertain about the future. Andrew Sinclair, BBC Look East in Stevenage.
So just how bad will things get for our councils? Earlier I spoke to John Reynolds from Cambridgeshire County Council, where 300 jobs are set to go. I put it to him that this was a double whammy, all those jobs being lost, plus cuts in services.
Well, we're in a very difficult position. We know that central government have made it quite clear that local government is going to have to reduce its expenditure over the next 4 or 5 years. We are taking, in common with most other authorities across the east of England, action to reduce our expenditure. We are looking at our back office services and making very substantial costs reductions there. We're looking at how we transform our services across Cambridgeshire to reduce costs. And those put together will go a long way to make up what is a very significant £70 million reduction over the next 5 years. We need to do that. If we don't do that, then there will be even worse problems that we'll have to face up in years to come.
The Prime Minister, speaking to us today, seemed to imply that the economy is on the mend. Are you saying that the worst is yet to come?
I'm pleased if the Prime Minister thinks that the economy is on the mend. Quite clearly, he and his Chancellor have made it clear that local government is going to have to bear some of the brunt of paying back this very significant debt that the country has. So even if there is some recovery, we will want to make sure that we take whatever effective action there is required to balance our books.
What about the costs of executive pay? Because there's been a lot of criticism about the levels of public sector pay, especially for chief executives in local councils. Isn't that somewhere that ought to be looked at for savings?
Yes, and we've been reducing those costs very significantly. We haven't, as I said earlier, had any increase for the chief executives and the senior staff across Cambridgeshire for this financial year, and will be the same, I suspect, for next financial year. So we are bearing down on all of those particular costs.
And can you guarantee people listening tonight that they won't be affected by cuts to their essential services?
What they will find, I think, is that we will have transition in services, and those services will be provided in different ways at a lower cost to us. We have to work with all of our people in need to make sure that they're getting exactly what they need to be able to live effective, proper lives. The way those services are going to be provided is going to have to change, however, and change very significantly over the next 5 years.
Councillor John Reynolds, thank you very much.
Thank you.
A speeding driver who lost control of his car and killed a 17-year-old pedestrian has been jailed for 8 years. The crash happened in Harwich. The father of the victim said he hoped the sentence would send a message to other drivers who go too fast.
Moments after today's hearing, Charlotte Blackburn's father made this statement.
Charlotte's death has had a massive impact and a devastating impact on our family, friends and the whole community of Harwich. She was a beautiful, caring, fun-loving girl and a very popular girl. She had everything to live for, and now we'll never hear her laugh or smile again.
Back in May, Charlotte was walking home along this road when a car mounted the pavement and hit her. Ryan Elmore was driving. He was drunk and going too fast.
Tragically, Charlotte stood no chance when she was struck by Elmore's car as she walked on the pavement with a friend. Ryan Elmore acted in a totally selfish and mindless manner.
8 months on, photos and tributes to Charlotte still cover a tree near the scene. Charlotte's mother welcomed the 8-year sentence given to Elmore.
They have to be tough on young people now. There's too much of it going on. Too many deaths.
Back at the scene, a friend has placed photos from Charlotte's last ever night out, taken just before she died. A message reads, "So everyone can see what a good time we had and maybe feel better because of it." Gareth George, BBC Look East.
Later on Look East, the chance to buy a slice of love. Defence chiefs confirmed today that thousands of troops from East Anglia will be heading for Afghanistan later in the year. It will be the third time that 16 Air Assault Brigade will have gone to Helmand Province. Let's get the details now from Alex Dunlop, who's at Colchester Barracks.
Hi there, Susie. Well, I'm at Merville Barracks, which is the headquarters of 16 Air Assault Brigade. I have to say today's news has been a bit of an open secret in the streets of Colchester for the last few weeks. After all, this is a garrison town, but the statement by the Prime Minister today makes it official. Around 3,000 troops from the Colchester area will be heading out to Afghanistan in the autumn. Now, 16 Air Assault were last out in Helmand in the summer of 2008. I remember it. I went out with them. It was a very hot, dusty, very gruelling campaign, and they lost a lot of men. But one advantage this brigade has got over any other brigade that's gone out before is that of experience. They're the only brigade that by this autumn will have been out 3 times.
All quiet today at Merville Barracks, but out-of-sight training has been stepped up for the autumn. The parachute regiment are at the sharp end of any deployment. When I first met 3 para training on Salisbury Plain, they were the first British soldiers to go into lawless southern Afghanistan. Let's go! Lawless may be an understatement. Famously, more than 1 million bullets were fired. Corporal Brian Budd was awarded the posthumous Victoria Cross after single-handedly storming a Taliban position.
Look, no military conflict is ever without risk, and I pay absolute tribute to the heroism of our armed forces. But the troop surge, the troop uplift, is to enable us better to be able to tackle the Taliban.
Colchester is loyal to its garrison, but those we spoke to today seemed a little war-weary.
If they're going to send more people over and get it over and done with, that'd be good.
I personally, if that was any of my family that were in the army, I wouldn't like it.
I'm saying if it's going to take more troops to get the job done, get it done and get the boys back home as soon as possible.
My big complaint is against our major NATO European allies who have not deployed troops to southern Afghanistan. And that's the point that I've made on several occasions in the House of Commons and challenged the Prime Minister on it. And frankly, France, Germany, Spain, Italy and Poland have not done their job in southern Afghanistan.
This will be 16 Air Assault Brigade's 3rd visit to Helmand. Many soldiers battled hardened from previous tours. They'll have to draw on all their experience.
And one man who certainly has experience is Lieutenant Colonel Jez Hare from the brigade. You were out in Helmand a couple of years ago. How do you think this tour will differ?
Well, this time we should have increased troop ratios, which should give us a greater freedom of action in our area of operations to mentor the Afghan National Security Forces and also set the conditions to promote economic growth.
More troops, does that necessarily mean more fighting?
No, not necessarily, but like I say, it should give us more freedom of action to move around the area.
So it's a case of more of a show of force, really?
Yes, it will be, a thickening of troop numbers.
And briefly, we heard Bob Russell say more Allied troops from Europe needed. Do you think you're bearing the brunt of the action?
Not at all, not really in Helmand. Certainly we'll be working with the Danish and the Estonians again in Helmand, and of course this time there'll be a lot more Americans.
OK, Colonel, thank you very much for joining us, and with that, back to the studio.
Alex, thank you.